Welcome. We are so pleased to have you here again with us at Fables Adventures, the podcast where we share stories each day that are created with our mobile application for iPhone and iPad. We've been having fun creating this content, so please give us a follow, a like, and let us know in the comments what you think of our new show. Check out the description for links to the app where you can create and share your own audio stories, get access to the community feed from other creators, and subscribe on the app to possibly have your own story featured right here on our podcast. Today's story is entitled The Paradox of Love, and it deals with some interesting and heady questions. What would you sacrifice to keep the person you love? Your future? Your memories? Reality itself? Iris Castellan is living in a world that's destroying itself, and she's slowly realizing she's the cause. The Temporal Archive is fracturing, existing simultaneously as burning ruins and pristine marble, as past and present and future all at once. History is cannibalizing itself, and Iris, who can speak every language that ever existed, can no longer understand what reality is trying to tell her. With Marcus Reid, her partner and friend, Iris seeks the Archon, the ancient consciousness that governs the timeline. And there, in the center of collapsing realities, Iris learns a truth that shatters everything. She exists in two timelines simultaneously. She was born in 2847 as a time travel researcher, and she was also born in 1902 in a small village, living an ordinary life until the fractures began. Both timelines are real, both versions of Iris exist, and reality cannot sustain the paradox. The Archon delivers the devastating verdict: one timeline must collapse, one version of Iris must be erased. One set of memories, one identity, one life must cease to exist. But as Iris struggles to choose which version of herself deserves to survive, she discovers something worse, something that transforms her from victim to architect of her own tragedy. She created the paradox deliberately. Iris went back in time and altered her own origin because she couldn't accept losing Marcus. In one timeline, they met professionally and briefly. In the other, Marcus searched for her across centuries, and their love spanned lifetimes. Unable to bear the pain of losing him, Iris fractured reality itself to create a version of history where their love could be eternal. And now, by trying to hold on to one person, she's endangered everyone. The entire universe is collapsing because Iris couldn't learn to grieve. The choice becomes clear and impossible. Erase the timeline where Marcus searched for her across centuries, forget their eternal love, and live with the grief she tried so desperately to avoid. Or let everyone die so she can keep her memories. This is a story about the difference between love and possession, about whether holding on to someone at any cost is actually love, or if real love means having the courage to let go. It's about grief, sacrifice, and discovering that some wounds can't be avoided, they can only be chosen and survived. Fair warning, this story is emotionally devastating. It's beautiful and heartbreaking and asks questions about love and loss that don't have comfortable answers. It's sophisticated, philosophically complex, and assumes emotional maturity from its listeners. Fracture across timelines with The Paradox of Love.
The fracture. The library was burning and not burning simultaneously. Iris Castellan stood at the intersection of two impossible realities, watching her sanctuary destroy itself in duplicate. In one version, the Temporal Archive erupted in orange flame, centuries of preserved texts curling into ash. In the other, the building stood pristine, untouched, its marble columns gleaming under fluorescent lights that shouldn't exist in 1847 Constantinople. Except this wasn't Constantinople anymore. It was everywhere and nowhere at once. Marcus Reid materialized beside her, his form flickering slightly at the edges. "Tell me you know what's happening," he said, his voice carrying the strange echo that all sound carried now, as if every word was being spoken in duplicate. "We're in a paradox pocket," Iris replied, her linguistic abilities almost useless now. What good was speaking every language when reality itself refused to communicate? Two versions of the same moment occupying the same space, both real, both impossible. The ground beneath them rippled like water. Iris stumbled, her hand reaching out to steady herself against the bookcase that was simultaneously wood and stone. The temporal fracture had been accelerating for weeks. When it started, it was contained. Small ruptures, where the timeline hiccuped, where you might glimpse a different version of a street overlaid like a ghost image. But now the ruptures had merged into something far worse. History wasn't just breaking, it was cannibalizing itself. "We need to reach the Archon," Marcus said, "before the pocket collapses completely." The Archon. The ancient entity that governed the timeline. The consciousness that held reality's coherence. If anyone understood what was happening, it was the Archon. But reaching it meant diving deeper into the fracture, deeper into places where causality itself had become negotiable. Iris closed her eyes and listened to the sound of her own heartbeat, except there were two rhythms, slightly out of sync. Her eyes snapped open. "Marcus, something's wrong with me." "More wrong than the end of civilization?" he asked, but his characteristic levity was strained. "No, I mean—" Iris pressed her hand to her chest. "I can feel two pulses, two versions of my heartbeat. What if I'm caught in the paradox too?" The realization sent ice through her veins. The fracture had been random at first, but Marcus had noticed a pattern last week. It seemed to follow Iris. Events fractured more severely in her wake. Contradictions multiplied, and now the ground beneath her literally split between two certainties, each one demanding to be real. "We'll figure this out," Marcus said, but his voice wavered. "Just like we always—" A sound interrupted him. Not a sound exactly, but a memory of sound. A voice, calling out in a language Iris should have known but didn't. The temporal anomaly was doing something new. It was reaching into people's minds, pulling out moments that belonged to other timelines. Iris ran deeper into the fractured archive, Marcus close behind. The hallways twisted, leading simultaneously to destinations that contradicted each other. A corridor would end at the Grand Archive, and also at a dead end, and also at a staircase leading to nowhere. Iris had learned to navigate paradox pockets by not fighting the contradictions, by moving through them as if they were all equally valid. She thought in multiple languages simultaneously: French, Aramaic, Proto-Indo-European, mathematical notation. Anything to keep her mind flexible enough to hold two truths at once. They found the Archon in the center of the archive, which shouldn't have had a center anymore. It manifested as a figure made of crystallized light, ancient and terrible and infinitely sad. "You know why you're fractured," the Archon said without preamble. Its voice had no single tone, but rather existed as harmony and discord at once. "You already know. You've known since the fracture began." "No," Iris said. But even as she said it, she felt the wrongness. Memories surfaced unbidden, and they contradicted each other. In one memory, she was born in the year 2847. A researcher who discovered time travel and was recruited to protect the timeline. She'd never known her parents. They'd died in an accident before she was born. In another memory, she was born in 1902, the daughter of a temporal physicist who went mad studying paradoxes. She'd grown up in a small village, lived an ordinary life until the day the first fractures appeared, and she realized she could speak languages she'd never learned, including modern English, which shouldn't exist yet. "Both are true," the Archon explained gently. "Both timelines exist. Both produced you. The fracture began because you exist at its center, the point where two histories collided. The anomaly isn't random. It's drawn to paradoxes. And you are the greatest paradox this timeline has ever produced." Iris's mind reeled. "That's impossible. I'm one person." "You are two people," the Archon corrected. "And as long as both timelines coexist, reality will continue to tear itself apart trying to accommodate you, trying to determine which Iris Castellan has the right to exist." Marcus grabbed her hand. "There has to be a way to merge them, to make you whole." "There is," the Archon said, "but only one version of Iris can survive. One timeline must collapse. One set of memories, one past, one identity must be erased." The ground beneath them fractured visibly now, showing glimpses of other times below. The Library of Alexandria, the archives of the Moon Colony, a library that would exist 1,000 years hence. The entire timeline was coming apart at the seams, and Iris understood with crushing clarity that it was her existence that was unraveling it. "How do I choose?" Iris whispered. "How do I erase myself?" "You already know the answer," the Archon said. "You've always known. That's why you came here." Iris looked at Marcus, looked at the fracturing world. Then, terribly, she understood. In the timeline where she was born in 2847, she and Marcus never met until they were assigned to work together professionally. In the timeline where she was born in 1902, she and Marcus met in that village when he arrived to warn her about the fractures. That Marcus was older, wearier, more protective. He'd lived decades before she was born. That Marcus had been searching for her across timelines. And she'd always loved that version of Marcus more. "You're still in the fracture," she said slowly to Marcus. "You're always speaking to me from one timeline or the other. I can hear the discontinuity in your voice. Which version are you, Marcus? Which timeline are you from?" Marcus's form flickered. For a moment, she saw two versions of him overlap. One younger, one older, one just meeting her, one meeting her again after searching for centuries. I'm from both, he said quietly. I exist in paradox, too. I've been trying to show you there's another way, that you don't have to choose, that if you embrace both timelines instead of fighting them, there is no other way. The Archon interrupted, and sadness rippled through its crystallized form. I've modeled every possibility. The timeline cannot sustain her paradox. One must collapse. Iris felt her knees weaken. She thought of the village life, simple, ordinary, tinged with joy and heartbreak. She thought of the future life, vast, complex, dangerous, but filled with purpose. She thought of Marcus's voice, calling across centuries to find her. What if I'm asking the wrong question? Iris said suddenly. What if the choice isn't which version of me survives, but which version of me is authentic? There is no authentic version, the Archon said. Both are equally real. No, Iris said. There is. And I think you've been trying to tell me all along. She closed her eyes and listened, not to the duplicate heartbeats, but to something deeper, to the moment where both timelines converged, to the point of paradox, the moment when she realized the fracture didn't begin when two timelines collided. The fracture began when she created a closed time-like curve, when she went back in time and altered her own origin, creating two competing versions of her past so she could live with Marcus across centuries instead of meeting him once and losing him to time. She was the one who fractured reality, not accidentally, deliberately. And the only way to save the timeline wasn't to choose between versions of herself. It was to choose between versions of what love meant. If I erase the 1902 timeline, Iris said slowly, I lose the version of Marcus that searched for me across time. I lose the memory of meeting him when I was ordinary and small. I lose the kind of love that spans centuries. Yes, the Archon said. But if I keep both timelines, everyone dies, Iris continued. The fracture spreads. Civilization ends. History erases itself. Yes. Iris opened her eyes and looked at Marcus. Both versions of him, flickering in the fractured light. She saw him young and old simultaneously. She saw all their moments, real and unreal, valid and impossible. I have to let you go, she said. Both versions of you, both timelines. Iris, Marcus began, but she raised her hand. No. Listen. I went back in time and created this paradox because I couldn't accept losing you. Because the pain of losing someone you love was too great. But in trying to keep you, I've endangered everyone. I've put my need for one person above the existence of civilization itself. She turned to the Archon. I choose. I choose the 2847 timeline. I choose the future version of myself, the one who never went back, the one who met Marcus once and let him go, the one who learned to live with the grief instead of rewriting time to avoid it. No, Marcus said. His older form was crying. Iris, you're choosing to forget me. You're choosing to erase the centuries I'm choosing to let you live, Iris said gently. All of you. Every version of you across every timeline. I'm choosing to stop trying to hold on to people by bending reality. I'm choosing to be human enough to hurt. She raised her hand to the Archon. Do it. The light was white and absolute. When it faded, Iris Castellan was alone in her lab in the year 2847. The fractures were gone. The timeline had sealed. The world was whole again. She remembered the 2847 timeline perfectly. She remembered being recruited to protect history. She remembered working with a talented but infuriatingly casual colleague named Marcus Reid, who had been assigned to her team 3 months ago. She did not remember 1902. She did not remember searching for her across centuries. She did not remember the last kiss beneath a sky that was simultaneously night and day. But standing at her window, looking out at a timeline that was stable and whole and real, Iris felt a phantom ache in her chest. The echo of a heartbeat that wasn't hers. The memory of a love she'd chosen to forget. And she understood finally that some kinds of sacrifice weren't erased just because you forgot them. They lived on in the spaces between who you were and who you chose to become. In the hallway outside, Marcus Reid passed by her lab without looking in. He was whistling an old song, something from the 1900s, a melody he'd never heard before but somehow couldn't forget. Behind him, the timeline held steady. And Iris Castellan, the only version of Iris Castellan left in the world, picked up her pen and continued writing the history of a universe she'd saved by learning to let go.